From the ancient land of the Ethiopian treasurer who became a Christian in the 1st century, the Word of God now goes forth to all of Africa, the Middle East, and Southern Asia. Station ETLF, widely known as RVOG, the radio voice of the gospel, is owned and operated by the Lutheran World Federation Broadcasting Service. English and Amharic, shown on the sign, are the 2 official languages of the country. The famous Luther rose on the flag of the Federation flies side by side with the national flag of Ethiopia. The Reverend Dr. Sigurd Aski of Norway is the General Director of RVOG. He heads an international staff of about 160 persons, plus a similar number at the area studios, which are operated and financed by the churches and missions in their own areas. Here, Dr. Aski greets Dr. Franklin Clark Fry, President of the Lutheran Church in America, and Otto Emanuel Abraham, President of the Lutheran Church of Ethiopia. The central figure here is Dr. Frederick A. Schutz, President of the American Lutheran Church, shown with executives of the radio studio in the Malagasy Republic. His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie I, attended the opening ceremonies of the radio station on February 26, 1963. The dedication plaque on the main building in Addis Ababa announces the motto of the station, "Proclaiming Christ to His World." Before 1963, there was no effective radio voice to carry the gospel of Jesus Christ to 1/3 of the earth's people who live where RVOG now speaks. The Lutheran World Federation Broadcasting Service is the united effort of more than 70 Lutheran church bodies. The other major partner in this ecumenical enterprise is the Coordinating Committee for Intercontinental Broadcasting, representing groups of Protestant churches in Africa, the Far East, Asia, and other parts of the world. 50% of the operating expense and 50% of the broadcast time are the responsibility of each partner agency. During the 24-mile trip from Addis Ababa to the transmitting site, we pass a typical Ethiopian house. We see a farmer threshing grain by the centuries-old method of having the cattle tread it out on a threshing floor of hard-packed earth. The wind blows away the chaff if he throws it up often enough with his homemade winnowing fork. A local horseman looks across the transmitter site, where several radio antennae can be seen. Technical Director Eric Kramer of the United States is in charge of technical planning and operation of $1 million worth of equipment. Ethiopian workmen quickly learned the skills necessary for assembling the huge antenna pylons. They had to overcome fear of heights to work hundreds of feet above the ground like this, and to overcome dizziness when looking down inside the antenna tower. The barbed wire fence around the transmitting station area is needed to protect people from the dangers of high-power electricity. This modest building houses the controls for one of the most powerful Christian radio stations in the world. Paul Mario of Ethiopia tunes the 2 powerful transmitters, known to the staff as Fritz and Hercules. Spare transmitter tubes must be kept in readiness for emergency. Each tube costs as much as a Volkswagen automobile. This automatic switchboard controls both of the 100,000-watt radio beams that can be aimed precisely at target areas north and south or east and west. Stretched between the pylons is the dual-band curtain antenna system used in long-distance broadcasting. The beam to India is bounced twice off the ionosphere. On this map, the pyramid indicates the transmitter, and the silver circles show the location of the area studios, which produce the radio programs in the language of their own people. Their tape recordings are airmailed to Ethiopia and beamed back to the target areas. The processing and playing of the tapes actually takes place in this administration center in Addis Ababa. A small antenna on top of the building sends the programs to the transmitter station, which sends them out to the world. Technician Waka adjusts part of the link between the studio and the transmitter. Another Ethiopian technician operates the master control board at the studio building. Program Director Ulrich Fick of Germany, along with his assistant Vera Henrich, follow the general guideline that 30% of the programs shall be directly evangelistic and 70% educational and cultural in nature. Traffic Officer Ann Foltz has the complex task of processing broadcast tapes received from more than 15 area studios. Here, the daily operations log is being prepared in the traffic office, for every minute of broadcast time must be carefully scheduled. Chief News Editor Ken Stewart of Great Britain has helped develop newscasts that have won worldwide acclaim for their fair and accurate reporting in 5 languages: Amharic, Arabic, English, French, and Swahili. World news is monitored regularly over teletype from the German press agency, from British Reuters, and from other sources. Assistant News Editor John Horton prepares English language newscasts, which are broadcast many times a day. A Lutheran from Tanzania is the Swahili News Editor, whose broadcasts are beamed especially to East Africa. The Arabic News Editor is an Anglican from Lebanon. Most of the other Arabic programs are prepared at the studio in Beirut, Lebanon. Here, the finishing touches are put on the Arabic news, which is broadcast daily to the Near East, where nearly half of the listener mail comes from Muslims. French news has a large audience, for French is second only to English among the languages most widely used in Africa. Besides news broadcasts, the headquarters studio also produces some special features for the medium wave programs intended for Addis Ababa and vicinity, where 1 million people live. Here, for example, is a panel discussion on the subject of family planning and responsible parenthood. The editor of the medium wave programs selects and splices together the words and music that will be in the final tape recording. Lutheran church leaders of Ethiopia are the advisors for the area studio located here on the grounds of the Lutheran Theological Seminary at Addis Ababa. A studio director from Norway works with an Ethiopian radio evangelist to get an accurate and helpful interpretation of a Bible passage. Amharic listeners are told that this is the Yumisrak Dimps studio of Radio Voice of the Gospel.
በብስራተ ወንጌል ራዲዮ ጣቢያ የምትሰሙት የአማርኛ ፕሮግራም የተዘጋጀው በምስራች ድምፅ ሬዲዮ ነው።
A Lutheran pastor interviews a citizen of Addis Ababa as part of the popular program series known as Ask the Pastor. In the surrounding countryside, anyone with a radio receiving set can quickly gather a group of friends to listen to the radio voice of the gospel. From agricultural experts, farmers learn how to improve the management of their land. From evangelical speakers and Bible study courses, they learn to improve the management of their lives. Thousands of listeners write to the studio expressing their appreciation. Some ask questions, and many seek to enroll in the correspondence courses offered. Every letter is answered, and names of non-Christian writers are referred to the pastor nearest them for personal follow-up. This African pastor can make good use of such knowledge, but in certain Arabic lands, it is legally forbidden to try to convert a Muslim to the Christian faith. These are exciting days in East Africa, and the radio voice of the gospel attracts listeners in many countries, including Malawi, which has its own studio operated by a council of Christian churches. Even those who cannot read can learn about Christ and a better life through radio. Another area studio is located in the Malagasy Republic, a large island off the southeast coast of Africa. Programs from this studio at Ansarabi are having a great influence on the Malagasy population, which includes hundreds of thousands of Lutherans. One popular announcing team is a farming expert and a wide-awake farmer who conduct a friendly dialogue program. The Malagasy studio has won the full cooperation of the local mayor and national government officials, shown here signing the studio's guest book. Calling All Children is a variety program that includes singing and children's stories. 600 miles away, an interview is tape recorded with a Christian layman who came out of paganism and wants to share his Christian experience. When this young man completed his Bible correspondence course and received his diploma, there were already 2,000 students enrolled in correspondence courses from the Malagasy studio. The radio programs are publicized by personal witness and by posters, such as this one in a hospital waiting room. Portable radios enable hospital patients to tune in to the radio voice of the gospel, and many write letters of appreciation to the radio station. Here, on the lower slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, stands the Lutheran Radio Center at Moshi, Tanzania. There is great interest in this studio among the 500,000 Lutherans in Tanzania, as well as other citizens of this young nation that became independent in 1961. Technical Director Bertram Mensah of the United States and Pastor Ferdy Baglow of Canada got the studio off to a good start. Mr. Mensah instructed Tanzanian technicians in the operation of the electronic equipment. The direction of the studio was then turned over to Pastor Ephraim Amos of Tanzania, who got part of his pastoral training at Luther Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota, with the help of a travel grant from Lutheran World Action. There is no lack of musical talent, for there are hundreds of church choirs among these people who seem to have a natural rhythm in their bones. A radio staff member, on the left, interviews a listener in western Tanzania, where a United Nations airlift enabled the Lutheran World Federation to resettle thousands of Watutsi refugees. India, the most heavily populated nation in the non-communist world, is struggling with many problems, and Radio Voice of the Gospel can help to solve some of them. No religious broadcasts of any kind are permitted over radio stations in India, but 3 Indian studios produce Christian programs that come back loud and clear from Ethiopia. Production manager of the Lutheran Hour studio at Madras, India, is Pastor Jack Steinhoff, who also for many years represented Lutheran World Relief in the food distribution program. Lutheran Hour programs for India use typical Indian music and art forms. The most popular of Indian stringed instruments is the sitar, often accompanied by the tabla or drums. Along with drums and stringed instruments, this orchestra includes a series of rice bowls, tuned as a percussion instrument. 2 other studios in India produce programs for Radio Voice of the Gospel. The Andhra Christian Council prepares broadcasts in the Telugu language, and the 3rd studio operates in English and Hindi. Executive Secretary Bhaskar produces not only radio programs, but also films and film strips for church use. In Nigeria, on the west coast of Africa, there are 2 radio studios. This one is operated by the Lutheran Church of Christ in the Sudan and broadcasts in the Hausa language. Many people in Nigeria speak English as well as one or more of the tribal languages. So, in East Nigeria, the Lutheran Hour produces programs in the English language under the direction of Pastor Roland Kauth, shown here at the controls. An American program director with the good Lutheran name of O'Sullivan works with 3 Nigerian staff writers. Nigerian high school students work part-time in folding and stuffing the monthly newsletter that is mailed throughout the country. Meanwhile, back at the station in Ethiopia, the program exchange officer, Pastor William Graffam, arranges for the translation and sharing of the best programs from each studio. This exchange helps all the studios to produce the kind of programs that will help people the most. Whether these African children and millions like them learn to know Jesus Christ will depend in part on the strength and quality of our radio outreach. Radio Voice of the Gospel is your voice, proclaiming Christ to his world.